Hi, my name is Katya. I'm with Datamatics. I'm here with Summer Jeffers, and today we're going to talk about Fair Labor Standards Act. So, Summer, I've heard nowadays the weekly salary for a non-exempt is $455, which makes $23,660 annually. And these numbers are going to increase and make $970 weekly and $50,440 annually. This is a huge change, and what do you think about this?
Well, Katya, thank you. Yes, this change for the Fair Labor Standards Act will certainly be huge and very significant on businesses throughout the country. As Katya has mentioned, the current salary level for the Fair Labor Standards Act for an employee to, even for the very first test, be possibly considered as exempt, the employee must earn $455 a week. Before we even get to any of the other tests, like the duties and the salary basis, making sure that there's no deductions to that salary level, the 455 has been the standard since 2004. Currently, there's a federal rule in the final section at the Office of Management and Budget on the Hill in Washington, D.C., that will change this $455 to $970 per week. That means that any businesses who currently have employees that earn anywhere from that $23,000 number all the way up to approximately $50,000 a year and have the employees classified as exempt from the FLSA, those employees will automatically lose their exemption and be non-exempt. That means they are subject to the protections of the Fair Labor Standards Act. It means employers will need to document all of the hours worked and pay overtime for any hours worked over 40 hours in a week.
Okay, so what do you think the businesses should do in this case?
Well, certainly now is a time for the businesses to start thinking strategically about what they'll do. Depending on your operations, you certainly need to start thinking today about how to audit your workforce and consider any of the employees that do make within these ranges. So if the new threshold is going to be approximately, and these are estimates of $50,000 a year, $50,500 a year, let's say, anybody who's earning less than that today, you should look at very carefully. So you have basically four options. You could increase an employee's salary up to the new threshold, but you want to think about the financial implications, and you, of course, still want to thoroughly audit and make sure that this employee's duties would satisfy the duties test of the exemption under Section 541 of the Code. Another option is that you can reclassify your employees to non-exempt and attempt to limit their overtime liability, your business's overtime liabilities or their overtime opportunity. Why? Because that's time and a half. It could have huge financial implications on your business. But you need to think from a business standpoint of, is that possible? Do you have scheduling complications? Are you able to limit employees to working 40 hours a week? What will this do to your workforce's coverage? Do you need to hire new employees? Third, you could do nothing. And these final two bullet points are in red because they're the most likely of what employers will do and really the biggest risk employers have. So number one, by doing nothing, you will certainly put your company at risk if employees automatically become non-exempt and you're not even aware of it, and you're now not complying with the Fair Labor Standards Act. So if you've got an employee who automatically becomes non-exempt and you're not recording all hours worked and compensating that employee for all hours worked, you are non-compliant. You're subject to failing a DOL audit, and you're subject to a lawsuit. Finally, reclassifying as non-exempt. Certainly that's an option. This is probably another big option, as we've mentioned above, but where you need to spend some time today is doing the computations of what impacts that will have on your business.
Okay, let's go through a hypothetical scenario. So meet Sally. Sally works in the Human Resource Department at the company Gen.E. She makes $48,000 annually, which makes $4,000 per month, $923.08 weekly, and $23.07 regular hourly. and she works as salaried exempt employee. She's paid monthly, and an average work week for Sally is 38.42 hours. During payroll weeks or open enrollment periods, she's super busy, often working 55, 65 hours per week.
All right, great scenario. So this is certainly a scenario that I think a lot of businesses will be in. Okay, so let's go through what this Gen E company should be considering today. First, as we've already said, Gen E could increase Sally's salary to $48,000 and from $48,000 up to the new threshold of approximately $50,500. Now, a couple things about the proposal. It's likely, and I predict that it will happen, that the amount will raise and that there will be a new mechanism in place to continue raising this. So while we don't know for sure, once the final rule comes out, if there is that mechanism in place, Jenny wants to consider what this $50,000 salary is going to be in the year 2018 and 2020, et cetera. So if you're going to do this, if you're going to increase Sally's salary, some of the other business considerations that you'll want to contemplate is how you're going to convey this raise to Sally. You want to be careful. You don't want Sally to think, wow, Gen E's been underpaying me so much that the Department of Labor is forcing them to give me a raise. Because essentially that is what is happening, and you want to consider the morale of your employees. Certainly you also want to consider your overall financial impact. If you've got 100 Sallys, if you've got 100 employees in the situation where you're going to raise their salary $2,000 a year, it's $200,000 on your company. Reclassify to non-exempt and limit overtime. Certainly another example that we mentioned earlier, and in another option that a business could do, but you again need to carefully consider how you're going to put this in place. You'll have to train management to make sure that their employees are not working over 40 hours a week. Do you have software in place that will help you have the data to carefully track all hours worked? And what about the coverage? If you're limiting Sally's work week to 40 hours, and during a busy payroll week she usually works 55 hours, how is she possibly going to get the job done? You might need to hire. Again, into the red. Many companies today who are not as smart as you and on this call and considering this strong possibility of these changes, they're going to do nothing. And that's dangerous because the Department of Labor, if you haven't heard, Fair Labor Standards lawsuits and audits have been steadily on the rise. The Department of Labor a couple of years ago hired 350 new investigators to come after businesses who are doing nothing, who are being non-compliant, and who are not making sure that their employees are being fairly paid, compensated, and the law is being followed. So you are certainly at risk for back pay liability because of non-compliance if you do nothing. And finally, what we could do with Sally is that we could reclassify her. We could say, you know what, Sally, you're now non-exempt. You need to start recording all hours worked. As we saw in the hypothetical facts, Sally might some weeks work 40 hours and she might some weeks work 55. So before we get to the actual numbers, what are some other things that businesses should think about if you are going to change your employees' FLSA classification to non-exempt from exempt? Well, certainly you want to think about morale. Many of your employees might feel like they were demoted if you suddenly start saying, I'm paying you on an hourly basis and you need to track your hours and I'm only paying you for the time you work, not a set salary. So you certainly want to think of those implications on your business. And then there's the legal implications that you need to think about. So in some states, while there's no federal lunch and break laws, many states do have lunch requirements for non-exempt employees. Is your state one of them? What about paid leave? Are you giving that? What about paid date requirements? One example is the state of New Jersey. It requires that any non-exempt employees, any employees who are protected by the FLSA, they must be paid at least 2 times in a month. So if you have a monthly payroll right now, that Sally's getting paid monthly per the hypothetical, she'll now have to be paid at least twice a month. Again, do you have the infrastructure, the payroll software capability in place to make those changes? And as we've mentioned several times, record-keeping requirements. What can your company do about that? Then, of course, financials are super important, and so let's look at some financials really quick. In the hypothetical, we said that Sally made $23.07 an hour. This would equate if you just started paying her overtime. On week 1, she worked 46 hours, and if you gave her her current hourly rate, if you converted her exempt salaried rate to an hourly rate, it would be $23.07. The first week, she would make $1,130.40. That's significantly higher than the $923 that you're paying her now. And as you see in that first side, on the left-hand side, these numbers are almost all higher. Only in week 3, where she didn't work over 40 hours, are you paying her less than what you're currently paying her. So this is a big financial impact for one employee on your organization. So then what you want to do is look on the right side of the page on this other chart. Okay, so now you're going to say, well, Sally, we're going to change you to non-exempt and pay you $20 an hour. How is that going to make Sally feel? That's one part of the consideration. And again, the financial part of the consideration, though, is what will it do in terms of what you're paying her per week. Again, the numbers in some weeks are higher because you've got a $20 rate, and any week that she works overtime, she makes $30 an hour. So there's a lot of computation to be done here, a lot of thought to be done, and I applaud you for considering these things. We will be doing a more in-depth presentation very soon.
Okay, it was really interesting. Thank you, Summer.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining. And final words of advice, what you want to be doing right now, audit, make sure that you're complying and documenting. For more information, please go to the Datamatics website so that you can sign up for our more in-depth webinar on this topic. Thanks and have a great day.